Okay, now that we finish up the HTML, we're going to move on to the CSS. There's a little bit more CSS here, about 200 lines. So I'm going to start by making this an external style sheet. And let's create the document. Styles.css. That way we can link to styles.css. And just to make sure it's all linked up and I didn't make any typos, I don't have any typos, background, color of pink, let's just launch it, make sure. Okay, we got a background color pink so we know it's linked up properly, so I'll take that out. Now at the top here of our CSS, we're going to create some variables. And I realize we haven't covered variables up to this point, but they do a couple things for us, these variables do. Number one, they make our code a little bit more readable. For example, we can give a variable name of primary. This will be our primary color, but the value of our primary color is DDD. Now, once you know, you can kind of see here what the color is in Visual Studio, but if you say color of primary, that might mean something more to you when you're reading the code than color of DDD. So it does make our code a little bit more readable, and it also makes it a little bit easier to reuse these values. So we'll give another variable the name of dark, give another variable the name of light. So these are our colors. And then we're also going to give a shadow so it makes it a little bit more readable, but it's also easier to code that shadow by just giving it the variable name of shadow than putting in this more complex value. So we'll use this pretty quickly. On the body tag, we'll do box sizing, border box. So we font family of Arial. Helvetica Sans Serif is fine. And right away, we'll do the color. So this is the text color of dark. And so just to test, we're using this new variable. Let's see how this looks. If I inspect, get it out of mobile view here, and I put this on the body, right there you can see that the color value of dark represents 333, and you can check it and uncheck it to make sure that it's working. So that is in fact working. It's changing the color from black to 333. So our variables are working. You've now learned about variables and used them for the first time, so that's good stuff. Actually, let's put that on the HTML instead. Still, it's going to be inherited. This is all going to be inherited by the body. It really doesn't make a big difference. There you can see the color of dark. Is being applied to the HTML tag. Good. Moving on. Now, body. You don't have to use variables all over the place, since we don't have a variable for CCC. Put some margin in there. Go ahead and style our button. Real quick, we'll look at the page. You can see the background color on there. Some margin on the side of the page now. So there's our 50 pixels on the left and right, 30 pixels on the top and bottom. Line height for all of our text. Demonstrate that. So kind of see the difference in what the line height does. Increases it. So the button class, we did have a couple of buttons in our markup. We're going to use our dark variable. And our light variable. Add some paddings. 0.6 root M's and 1.3 root M's. Get rid of the text decoration. And no border. So let's take a look at our buttons. Okay, so now our buttons are styled. Learn more button. I'll throw in a comment here. This is our general CSS. Not necessarily targeting any specific section. Make our image responsive by giving it a max width of 100%. And we're going to target our wrapper. And this is going to be our grid container. We tell the wrapper to display grid. And give it a grid gap of 20 pixels. So if our wrapper is our grid, the children then of the grid are the nav, this top container of section, another section of boxes, another section of info, another section of portfolio, and a footer. So the children, the grid items, are nav, 1, 2, 3 sections, 4 sections, and a footer. So this is the first property that transforms our wrapper into a grid container. Matter of fact, I'll throw that on the line above. Of course, grid gap then configures the space between the grid cells. So that's our general CSS. We'll add in the navigation on this video. Again, let's take a quick look at what it looks like. Currently, this is what our page looks like. We're going to style the nav next. Okay, so the class of main nav, unordered lists, also make that a grid container. 20 pixel gap, no padding. With style of none. and we're going to break up the list items inside of our UL into 4 columns by using grid template columns, a repeat function 4 times 1 fraction. So this is basically going to break up our list items going across the page in 4 equal fractions. There's 4 repeats, basically saying 4 columns, 1 fraction apiece. So that gets our nav going across the page in 4 even sections. So again, this property is unique to the grid layout, as well as this repeat function that gets us to repeat the fraction, which is a value we have not used before, 4 times. So that's the main work for the grid layout here. We're going to target the anchor tags inside of our nav, change their background color, display block, remove their underlines, add some padding, 0.8 rems, center their text, change their text color, make their text all uppercase, and give them a box shadow with our variable of shadow. So kind of taking a look, we changed their background color. Let's inspect here. Change their background color. When you tell them to display block, that's what enables us to give them padding. If we would not told them to display block, you notice now the padding still works. Let's see. When we display block, something in here text align doesn't work. So tell them to display block. The padding text align center then. So without displaying block, we can't text align center. Which actually makes them maintain their 1/4 size. Because when we get rid of display block, the buttons aren't taking up the full container that they're in. So that's why I look at these different properties and mess with these checkboxes just to see how each piece interacts with each other. We're going to add in a little hover effect. It's going to switch the background and the text colors. So if you look here, the text color is dark. When you hover, it changes the text color to light. And the background color here is primary, and when you hover it, it's going to change the background color to dark. So it gives you a little bit of a hover effect. Okay, that's our navigation. We're going to stop the video here just to break it up into even chunks.